Where are you? You look like you're in the attic.
I'm in London. You know, there's no way to do a podcast from a hotel room. Well, at least in the hotel rooms I stay in, Troy, because I am a responsible individual and a working man. There's no way to avoid having the bed in the background, which is weird, but I'm mostly blocking it.
It's only weird if there's someone in it.
It is a wonderful day in London. It's one of those days when it's like in the high 70s and mostly sunny, although there's a little bit of a rainstorm now. Brits just go wild. You know, they don't get that many of these days, so they make them count.
I bet they went wild yesterday for the decisive victory.
Big match, beating up on Croatia. We're going to get to that. We should get started, if you don't mind. Welcome to People vs. Algorithms, show about detecting patterns in media technology culture.
It's a big show. It's number one.
And American culture, which we're going to get into.
We're the number one show for American exceptionalism.
Absolutely. It is an Americamaxxing summer, I believe. We are not joined by our European affairs correspondent. Unfortunately, Alex had a hard stop, so he was unable to. He's busy, right?
I mean having a fight on the front lawn of a sacred building doesn't seem like a problem. I mean, but it's not unprecedented by ancient standards, right? It's fine.
No, absolutely not. Or by like Florida standards, for instance. That's very common.
Yeah, the great thing about rich people in Florida have UFC fights at kids' birthday parties.
Yeah. No, the basic cops was basically just fights in front yards for the most part. A couple quick things before we get into that. Field Notes I wouldn't say it's popping off. I guess it's popping off. We've got like three figures of people in there.
Milling around, yeah.
And we're being selective. Some people have not activated the link. That might be a flaw of the system. Feature creep continues to happen. I mean, I'm not gonna announce it here, but you did text me with some kind of like fintech thing that you're gonna be wiring up. It is pretty remarkable, I will say, in this, how much you've been able to do to code on your own, unless you have a fleet of Ukrainians in the background.
There's no AI. It's just me coding. You'll notice I coded a feature up this morning. I put a little People versus Algorithms scorecard. Who won the week? The people or the algos? The people won this.
I think the product is evolving. I will say this because I guess making a product is a little bit like war. You know, all the planning sort of goes out the window once you hit contact, and we're getting some participation. I don't think it's totally clear yet to people what they should be doing in there.
So improve it. Give me the features. I'll execute it. Listen, there's a feedback button, and I take the feedback really seriously. And people have made suggestions. So, for example, it's a SMS-based system, and the Europeans don't get our texts, Brian. So I had to build a whole email European path so that the comments go out via email instead of text.
I think that's the flaw of the text. That is the flaw.
That's the flaw, yeah. But there's lots of ways that we'll innovate around that in the future. But the other one was people wanted reactions. I gave them reactions, man. Do you see you can now put in little animated GIFs and emojis?
I would just counsel people to use those sparingly.
Yeah, I
believe in taste. GIFs to me were always they were in the shallow end of the taste pool. Let's just put it that way.
Listen, I don't love the feature, but we'll try it. If we don't like it, we'll kill it. But what I will do is I get a lot of, I think you probably get more than me, but I get these sort of AI emails from the people that are trying to get sort of CEOs or product leaders or whatever on podcasts. Jim knows a lot about healthcare tech, or
they're
whatever,
all and they're all written the exact same. They're all created.
But it's all AI. It's so blatantly AI. Anyway, get these emails. People say, "Why don't you have Jimmy on your podcast? He can speak with authority." And I really loved your last episode about X. And so that's the common thing. And what I'm going to do just for those people, because this is a family show, right? This is about us getting together, and now and then we'll bring in people like we did last week. and now and then AB drops by, and Emily has dropped by. So we're going to do more of that. But the way that we handle these random requests is I'm putting a payola button on the field.
You're announcing it. You're pre-announcing I love the payola button. And explain what payola is. There's a lot of
payola was an old tradition where DJs were paid to play music from record company. Payola guys would pay DJs to play their songs.
It's the original clipping.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a payola button on ours, and it'll be like, I don't know what the price, there'll be an introductory price, but you can click it. It will be integrated with Stripe, and you instantly pay somewhere between $100 and $1,000 that will go to offset token costs for yours truly.
Yeah. So what, they'll get a topic that we'll discuss? If it's ad tech, it's got to be $1,000.
Well, topics are a little bit more money, but mentions. Or,
this is like Nick Fuentes. He does this, I think.
Yeah, no, maybe there's tiers. Maybe there's a topic. If you get a topic, a little more money. If it's a mention, it's smaller amount. And we will maybe make a joke about it, because I think that's the, modern ad read. It won't be an ad read per se, but it'll be an editorial mention. We're selling editorial mentions here on People versus Algorithms.
I love it. You know what it is?
Pay for tokens.
It's paid inclusion. Do you remember paid inclusion?
Yeah.
Look smart.
Yeah.
That early search, there was a way that you could buy your way into the search index on certain search engines, because they said, hey, we can't crawl everything. Help us out for a fee. I think it's what Iran is going to do with the Strait of Hormuz. It's like, no, it's not a toll, but it'll just help us out. It's a service fee. And we'll hook up a feed of your products into the search index and make sure that you got in there. So.
Yeah. Well, so that's coming soon to PvA. And did you mention that Alex is in Japan?
Is he in Japan? I didn't know where he is. He's in Japan.
He's big in Japan.
He should be doing this live from.
Well, he said that his schedule didn't overlap perfectly, and he's less committed than you. So you go to London, he goes to Japan, and he doesn't show up, you show up.
That's true. I can't wait to hear his reports from Japan. I've not been to Japan in 6 years now. It's too bad. It's the only thing I miss about my old job. Just going to Japan. And the people I worked with. We might have a PvA summer mixer. I didn't tell you this.
Oh, great.
I've been talking with AB
this kind of
about
stuff all the time. As long as AB is not involved, we'll do.
The AB is going to be involved. He's going to buy.
Because it's going to be at People's. It's going to be at People's Bar.
Well, we're in negotiation. People's, they want a lot of money. Like, I drive a bargain. So we're
as long as you don't do it at that like ghetto ass place that you did your last mixer at.
It wasn't ghetto ass. First of all, it was a fancy cocktail bar in like Irving Place, which is sort of adjacent to Gramercy. So
it was big in the 1860s, Irving Place.
Gramercy's great. That's where Victor Wembanyama was. Someone gave him the key to the park there. They've got a park that only residents get keys.
Yeah, it was across from the Gramercy Park Hotel. It wasn't keyed before. The hotel had a key for it.
Oh, really?
I used to stay there a lot. Yeah, and it's a lovely little park.
You stay in hotels in a city you live in? Weird.
No, this was when I lived in San Francisco.
I know.
Okay, so are we going to get to the really big show? The really big show that's coming up?
Yes. But I just
don't say we got a lot to. There's a lot going on this week.
No, we don't.
There's nothing going on.
One, I'm on my way to Cannes. I know you don't want to discuss Cannes. You hate Cannes for some reason. I don't know why. I'm on my way there. I have a very busy week ahead. I'm not going to regale you with everything I'm doing in Cannes, but I'm very, very, very busy. And there will be a mixer on the Quaset. Not slightly off the Quaset, but it's pretty central. These people are charging me an insane amount.
You'll probably do it at the Radisson, just slightly off the Quaset. Yeah.
These people are charging me, like, these bills keep coming and coming and coming and coming. Like, these canapes better be fantastic, flawless. Yeah. That's all I have to say. Anyway, I'll be doing the episode probably from the People Inc. villa next week, because
why don't you drag? We'll see if you can get Neil to join. We'll have him.
Well, I'm doing a podcast with Neil Vogel, the CEO of People Inc. A little state of the industry kind of thing. Neil will shuck and jive and he'll do his thing, and with Sarah Fisher,
Machine Gun Vogel, we call him.
Vogel. I don't call people by their last names. I'm like 53. And just one final note is a little bit of licking the cookie, I guess, as they say.
Maybe you can explain what that means for people that don't know what licking.
I don't know. I hear it on like tech podcasts.
I think it's like a sex term. It's a sex term.
No, I think it's like, this is mine. And it's just a way.
Oh, it's a possessive
family.
thing. It's like you can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was licking the pizza when I grew up. I was the youngest of 5 children. And, when the pizza hit the table, the go-to move was to lick slices to lay claim to them, which I'm sure my dad loved. He worked all day to put that pizza on the table, and then he has a bunch of kids literally licking it. So thank you, Dad. Kyla Scanlon got scooped up by CNN. This came days after I had been suggested that 60 Minutes.
Well, Emily Sundberg anointed you media prophet after that.
Yeah, it's Nostradamus. So that's all me. Let's get into the topics. We got to start with our friends at AI. So here's my thing on Anthropic. Right after we did our podcast, Friday night, which is always a great time to drop these things, the United States government slapped export controls on the new Anthropic model, Fable 5, which is a neutered version of the Mythos model. And this effectively, it said that non-citizens couldn't use it. This basically effectively meant that they had to pull it. To me, this is part of a bigger negotiation that Anthropic and all of these companies are doing with the federal government, because these AI companies are going to be entwined with the government. And the question is just what the arrangement is going to be. David Sachs tried to say it's going to be a free-for-all for as long as possible. That has ended. But the interesting angle to me beyond that is whether Anthropic has painted itself into a corner with its positioning, its brand positioning, its safety shtick. Like, I feel like it's being hoisted on its own petard here, because it kept going out there and saying, this stuff's got to be regulated, this stuff's got to be regulated. And it gave a massive opening to the government to say, all right, we're going to regulate it, starting with you. Now, the safety messaging was great when Anthropic's main constituencies were CIOs, they love safety, and also AI researchers. AI researchers totally lap up this idea that they're creating a digital god that is like, so dangerous. And they have an entire narrative and mythology built around.
They may have even believed it, Brian, you cynical.
I think that they are, okay, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's more likely than not that they sincerely believe this stuff. I mean, otherwise, who would spend all that time writing these massive missives that they do? And I think it just happens to line up with really good business strategy. I think this is a problem for them. I think it's a problem. And I think they're going to have to walk it back. You're already seeing Dario start to walk back a little bit all his doomer claims about mass unemployment. What do you do if you're Dario?
Oh, God. The whole thing was encapsulated. The ridiculousness of our time was encapsulated a moment ago when I opened up Instagram and I saw the really quite beefy Tony Robbins, who is,
yes, he's top heavy.
And he's shameless, obviously, interviewing Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil, of course, is the prophet of the singularity of AI. And whenever someone features Ray Kurzweil these days, they'll say that over the last 30 years, Ray Kurzweil predicted 180 things that are going to happen, and 167 of them, like self-driving cars, came true. Now listen to what Ray has to say. So what Ray will say is we're approaching singularity. AI is going to be embedded in your brain. You won't know whether it's the machine thinking or speaking or it's you. And there's this merger of the organic and the silicon. And what was so strange about it is, it's not that I'm sure Tony is a very smart guy, but he is relentlessly commercial. And so he just took in all of this crazy, philosophical AI, future talk from Ray and just said, at the end, thank you, Ray. And his message to everyone was just grab a hold of this technology and you'll be rich. And I think that kind of summarizes the complexity of being the head of communication, for one of these companies. So you look at Claude's Instagram feed, right? And it's like, it really shows the dimensions of what they're trying to do, right? I grabbed 5 examples, Brian. And the one is this new thing, Claude Corpse. Corpse? It sounds like corpse.
Corpse.
Core.
What is that?
Core. And it's paid fellowship in nonprofit. So we're seeing this with Meta. We're seeing it with a bunch of tech companies trying to do little things to fulfill some kind of social obligation, right? We're going to pay for you to do a fellowship at a nonprofit. The next one is the doomerist one, which is when AI builds itself, right? The output is compounding. This is be very, very careful with this technology. And the message under that from Claude's perspective is the future needs adult supervision, and we're the people you can trust because we tell you the hard stuff. And then you've got a Vatican message, right? So you've got like, when technology gets too powerful, we need to talk to Jesus, or we need to get those people on our side. And we care enough that we're sending our founder to contribute to, what was that thing called? What was the publication that the Vatican just put out?
Magnifica Humanitas.
Yeah. So, and then
the founder. You're talking about Anthropic's founder. I thought you were talking about Catholicism. I was like,
no,
really? They're going to send Jesus?
No. I'm just going over what you can understand someone's communication challenges by deconstructing their feed. And you can see all the things that they have to hit. So Claude Core, recursive intelligence, the Vatican, AI for small business, what people are making with Claude design, and how to get started with Claude. Like it's a very, very difficult communication exercise because you want to be, as they've positioned, their whole mission of their company is the responsible people behind this, otherworldly technology. But at the same time, you got some technology to market. You got some features to sell, right? You got some promises to make to the market, right? And I don't know. I think that they're going to have to probably back away a little bit. And the problem really is, Brian, is that the void needs to be filled by responsible people in government talking about how we're going to manage this transition.
We've got Pete Hegseth on the case. I don't see any reason to be concerned. A couple thoughts on that beyond Pete Hegseth being involved is, one, did you know Tony Robbins gets up to $300,000 to do like a corporate speaking gig? Goals.
It's more than you get, man. It's more than you get. What do you get? 300?
I would happily get on the plane for that. That's good stuff. Great shtick, Tony. The other thing is around Anthropic and its brand challenge is, I think that one of their underappreciated weak spots, and this is going to be typical of their conservative opponents, they're going to get painted as weird. Because this is a typical thing of like painting ideological opponents as weirdos. And we're starting to see this with Anthropic, and there is a lot of material to work with. I mean, they, because they're going to get tied to effective altruism. You just listen to what David Sachs and that all-in crew says, because they're not coming up with this off the cuff.
Well, what you hear, the undercurrent there is, we really want to hate these guys, but their model's really fucking good. That's the problem they have.
Yeah. And like, I think the weird thing is going to get tagged on them. You notice when they leaked this news, the government made sure to say that Dario was unreachable because he was at a wellness retreat. I took note of that. That's a detail.
Well, that Brian, actually, I think the guys at All In had a really good discussion about this week. Definitely worth listening to. And it really does help you understand why we are in an unprecedented place. And that is a private corporation with access to, all the world's PhDs and unlimited superintelligence or whatever. And if you're using Fable or Mythos, you can see that this stuff is like uncanny at this point. It is so powerful. It's unbelievable.
Did you use Mythos or Fable and get
I used Fable, and it was shockingly powerful, like crazy. Its ability to kind of like fill the gaps between your incoherent prompts around what features you want is unbelievable. But having said that, you have a private company that is making decisions about what people are asking for and deciding whether to hand out intelligence to them or not. Like, this is a big problem. And you've got the weight of all of these scientists, researchers, corporations, governments, using this tool, relying on this tool. And suddenly, like 5 people inside of a private company in San Francisco saying, nah, you can't have this. We're going to deprecate your model. And so, like, this decision, I think, crept up on them. Like, that we are going to try to do the right thing.
Why did it go? Because like Silicon Valley has tied itself in knots for a generation over quote unquote content moderation, right?
Dude, this isn't social media, man. This is like,
I know, but like they had the training wheels. So like, and look, obviously it's going to happen and the government is going to end up doing it. So all the things that they were fighting for, it will end up happening. This is like the freaking Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it's
all of the kerfuffle around social media companies deciding what or what not can go in a feed. And now you're deciding who gets intelligence. It's an order of magnitude different. And it really does highlight how significant a policy issue this is. It's massive.
Yeah, that's why the government is going to do that, and that's why there's the talk about the government, and it's getting louder, and it seems like it's coming. The government is going to take some form of stakes or interest in these companies, and these companies will end up giving over. What's 20%? Bernie says it's 50%. Maybe it goes into the sovereign wealth fund. Maybe it goes into the Trump accounts.
Well, I think the equity and, decision on who gets access to the tools are completely different things, right? I do think that some type of token tax or equity allocation or sovereign wealth fund is actually a great idea. It's a great idea. How you make it work.
Wait, why are they different things? It's just the government's the only person who can do those.
The other one is about who gets access to the technology. It's just different.
Yeah, and the government's going to decide because the government is going to own these. They're going to be like utilities. They're going to be like Fannie and Freddie Mac. I like that. That's the government's going to be calling the shots in large part. I don't care if the government only owns 20%. Guess what? They're going to call the shots. They're going to call it
a company. Just to get back to your question. You can't sound like a company selling fire insurance while you're manufacturing flamethrowers. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. Snap debuted specs this week. I think sometimes I forget about Snap, Like it's a very successful social platform that never lived up to its promise. They have been working at this hardware for years, right? And they came out, Evan Spiegel debuted them. The stock dropped like a rock. The investors saw one glimpse of Evan Spiegel wearing these massive glasses, these dork glasses on his face, and they said absolutely not. He gamely gave an interview to CNBC where I don't know if you saw it, but it was kind of funny because he was just trying to get to his PR talking points, and she's like, the stock is dropping like a rock. And he's like, we think the future of computing, which look, I've been there. You ask these people questions, they're going to answer the question, whatever they want. It almost doesn't matter what you say. Troy, you're more of a fashionista than I am. You have cultivated not just style, but taste across many different surface areas, as you would call them. Are these gross?
Well, I mean, it's hard. They're the company that has done the best job at bridging sort of tech and fashion, I think. I mean, I think Instagram has done a pretty good job of that as well. But, you got to admire Evan coming out and launching this on the New York Times. What was the name of the photographer that did the shoot? It looked more like, it looked like a kind of a Prada ad. And they looked, in the photographs very chic. You'll notice that I put it in, I'm talking about in the campaign, they look quite chic. Like if you blink, you might think that it was an ad for Chanel sunglasses. And I tried them on. You saw them. You saw the photo that I put up.
I thought that was AI.
Well, I can't say whether it is or not.
See, I just assume shit's slop now.
I think that, there's a lot of things converging here on poor young Evan who, laid down his his value in the ecosystem is that, he saw where things were going. He had this great original product insight, which is, camera first communication and disappearing messages, that was an entire behavior. Vertical video was his thing. He totally got that right. And his product was always really nice, but they never got out of that sort of single product trap that was, beloved by teenagers. And as a result, they didn't have the same scale as Meta. They didn't make those big, ambitious acquisitions that define Meta, like Instagram and WhatsApp. And as a result, he doesn't have scale on the ad side, and the product is going to lose relevance as AI shifts the whole market. And so he has to do something. So he comes out with 10 years ago, Snap Specs. Do you remember those coming? They had vending machines and all that. They were quite stylish. You could buy them, at fancy department stores, all of that. And, they were of marginal utility and they never really stuck. And I am a early proponent of these products, by the way. I have Ray-Ban glasses. I find them to be, I use mine just as glasses because they have good lenses in them, but they are, if you're traveling and you want to take a quick photo, they're useful. I find them quite useful to do a phone call. It's nice to listen to a podcast on them because you can still hear the world around you. The problem is battery life. But what he's done is he's taken it way further out and he built an entire computer in them. So they're really big and seemingly quite heavy. They weigh 183 grams or something like that. And they look kind of awkward because his have screens in them, whereas the Meta ones don't. And so it's.
Did you wear these around your family?
The Meta ones or these? No, I don't have these. I didn't wear them. No.
Okay.
And so, it's a bit of a Evan Hail Mary. And I think it's going to be a disaster, to be honest.
Okay. I'm glad we got there in the end.
No, but what did you think? I mean, are you getting them? They're $2,200.
Of course not.
His point was, this is a computer on your face. You're looking at your phone too much. God help you put these things on. I'd rather be caught looking at my phone. And people are going to say, hey, do I buy a computer or do I buy these glasses that last 4 hours and make me look ridiculous? I mean, come on, Evan.
I think they're going to buy a computer. Look, everyone is trying to reinvent or replace. Everyone's trying to replace the phone because I've always said, if you were like from the past and we're in a time machine and ended up now like from 25 years ago, I think the number one thing that would strike you is everyone walking around looking at a phone. Like, it's so strange. Like, just go out and like take note of how many people you pass that are just looking at their phone while walking. It's shocking.
Yeah, but if the alternative is wearing these, it's not an alternative.
Right. So I get why people are trying to, the humane pin, etc. Now, OpenAI is they've got Johnny Ive on the case since he did the Ferrari Luce, and they're going to come up with a twist on the phone. And I think everyone's trying to reinvent the phone, and it could end up just being, it's the phone.
Did you look at the use cases that they were promoting for these glasses? So, see the recipe in front of you, see the menu from the restaurant you're looking at, play virtual ping pong with your friend that doesn't have the glasses, measure a night table beside your bed just by, live translation. Okay. None of these, people don't care about any of this. You don't need it for any of these things. That's the problem. If you want to cook, look at a recipe on your phone. You don't need it, man. I don't need to stare into a pot of tomato sauce with virtual glasses on. So I know to add salt. It's not a thing.
Yeah. I mean, they might have like B2B uses. On that note, Silicon Valley this is so Silicon Valley. This is like the TV show. So, we talk about slop a lot. And so, Silicon Valley creates the conditions and the way to have all of this slop that gets created. And then they say, we have a taste problem. There's not enough taste out there. So now they have a taste startup. It's called Taste Labs. It's raised $18.5 million, promising to end AI slop by building the data and infrastructure layer to give AI models and agents taste. This was met with widespread derision. The idea that these tech people can go into a lab and mix a few things together and come out with taste. But I do think it shows that this is an important area.
Well, it's just like a cultural prompt, right? I mean, you're tuning the machine to be sensitive to those elusive things that are not, just facts and figures. It's reasonable. But if you look at the site, it feels like crypto, Brian. This is crypto shit.
Oh, that's bad. No, you don't want to go there. You had actually shared something that I found very interesting and went through the whole presentation. Eli Pariser, who I would argue is the Oppenheimer of clickbait, because he started Upworthy and he knew all the dark arts of those exit intent ads and you won't believe what happened next. But he also is the guy who introduced filter bubbles into the conversation. And he has a really interesting take. There's a bunch of people who were involved in this project, but that we're moving from a platform era to an agentic era. And to me, what really stood out was that it will bring people back into smaller communities. And that when you look at what moats or what's protected against AI, a lot of it comes down to connecting and belonging. And this exposes a lot of different areas. If you're just producing like how-to content, you might be screwed. I mean, Tim Ferriss had his book sales for like, the 4-hour work week, 4-hour body or whatever are down like 80% in the last few years, which is a sign, I believe, that AI is taking over these sectors. What did you take away from this? Because I thought it was a noteworthy idea that he put out there.
Brian, I'll tell you what I took away. I took away, God damn it, how much things have changed in the last few years. I think just to recap for everybody where we are now in media, and I feel like we're flogging horses here, but like the idea of banners, boxes, either beside or between text is laughable at this point. I mean, maybe there's rare cases where it makes sense, but like that whole idea that we spent years and years and years on and minted lots of millionaires and billionaires, all the ad tech, all the things that made that work, it's over. The idea that native is completely mainstreamed, like all content is a mix of, commercial and, not all content, obviously, but like commercial finds its way into the feed just natively, and that's just how things work. Every media business needs to find new ways of just completely rethinking how they make money, whether that's, little native, upsells around functionality or, virtual currencies or obviously subscriptions, events, all the things. And the idea that what he's talking about makes tons of sense. What comes after the platform era? And I think that you don't have to, it's not a big leap to see that for lots of information, for data, for basic kind of non-opinion or creator-based or, personality-based content, the AI does a really good job of going out and getting that on your behalf. And he's saying that two things are going to happen. People are going to automate a lot of that agents are going to get information when you want it. And I think that's entirely logical. And then the flip side of it is we're going to have these more sort of intimate, communities that are, resolutely human and creator led or, that bring the intimacy that people want. And I think that just makes tons of sense.
Yeah. I saw Wired is trying to create a community. I think communities are going to be the new boom. Like the newsletter era had its time, and now it's going to be about trying to create these micro communities or even larger communities. It's a different muscle, and I think publishers will mostly fail at it because they're so used to treating the audience as an audience, not as a community. They're not used to listening. They're not used to two-way. That's why, if you're in the events business, there's a lot of publishers are going into the events business sort of, because they don't have a lot of choices. And I think that's a difficult one because they're just used to a broadcast mentality, and community is different. We see it with field notes.
Yeah, the one thing that I don't understand well enough, but I'm paying attention to is what I think they refer to as, cognitive collapse or model collapse, which is when AIs are trained on AI content, how the sort of snake eating its tail problem starts to manifest in more hallucinations and poorer model quality. And obviously that's happening now. There's, so much of the corpus of content is AI generated that, what happens over time when the humans are out of the loop on that and the training gets all messed up. I don't know.
Yeah. The Reuters Institute each year does this digital news report. It's a chunky report. And they had one that came out this week, and it did confirm a lot of this. Now, this is survey data. They survey a lot of people, but I always think what people say and what they do, there's usually a delta there. But basically, they said for the first time in their measurements globally, social media and video networks now outrank news organizations' own websites and apps as the main source of news. Owned digital properties have lost 12 percentage points of reach since 2020. So, wow. I mean, the mantra was always, you got to go digital, go digital, go digital. But now you've got a declining asset, which is your owned and operated digital.
They also had a stat in there, Brian, about the number of local journalist equivalents per 100,000 residents. And it had gone from 40 to 7.8, which is just a measure of volume, like how many people are out reporting things locally. Something like 70% of U.S. counties fall below, this really thin national average there's just no reporting coverage in a lot of small communities.
Muckrack actually came out with a study this week that said that there's been an 81% decline in local journalists since 2002, which I found very noteworthy because I entered this profession in 2000 and I went to Columbia Journalism School, which I would not recommend, honestly, to anyone out there, because they were training us to be local journalists. They literally were training us to go into the part of the industry that was about to fall off a cliff. The entire curriculum was built around that. So not a great job, Columbia. There's some other disturbing stats. 76% of local journalists publications have no local health coverage. 77% of U.S. counties had no local education coverage. 70% of counties fall below the national average for local journalists. Yeah, that is how it is. At some point, this becomes a market failure. And the question ends up becoming, I notice when we talk about this in Europe, they're much more, they're used to market failures and addressing them. Particularly with all the languages and wanting to maintain society and culture, they're used to supporting this kind of thing because they're looking at this as local news, particularly being an infrastructure. It's infrastructure for democracy. I don't know. I don't think we will go in that direction because America has many wonderful qualities, but we always
news per se or information doesn't go away. It just comes from people with agendas. You'll still get information, but it'll come from people that have a stake in that information. So it's going to get harder and harder to sort through what's real, what's important, and what really matters.
Okay, I want to talk about Americamaxxing summer because I think it's begun. Right, so the World Cup has kicked off. And true to form, all of the complaints have mostly faded away, and it's gone, from what I can tell, really well. People are into it. I was walking through Newark Airport last night, and all the TVs were onto the World Cup. I mean, New York City is filled with watch parties, and I think that the World Cup is doing well. The games have been pretty good. People are actually scoring goals. The U.S. team looks all right. But there is a genre that has taken off in social media where Europeans are posting videos about how great America is. They discover Costco or Buc-ee's and they make videos about it, and the algorithm rewards them. There's this German guy, Freddie.
Do they do all you can eat in Europe? Can you get all you can eat in Europe? Like all you can eat chicken wings and stuff?
I used to go to an all-you-can-eat Pizza Hut buffet in Belgium. My roommate tried to see how many pizza slices he could eat. He ended up throwing up, actually. But it was those are the kind of things you do when you're 20. So yeah, they do have them. Also, down the street from my parents had lived in Brussels, and down the street there was this Mexican place called Chi-Chi's that had a all you can eat. It's not the Chi-Chis you're thinking about. So they do exist, but it is far less common, I believe, than say Las Vegas.
Yeah. All these people are coming to America. What's your point? They come to America and they're marveling at our great nation.
Yeah, they're marveling at like how friendly everyone is. They're marveling that we have.
They thought they were going to get
like,
shot, and instead they got all you can eat chicken wings.
Exactly. I was like, this is super heartwarming. And then I see an article. This isn't the way it seems. These are influencers. And this one woman, was actually just part of like an OnlyFans marketing scheme. So basically nothing you can trust is real. But I hope that visitors come away with an appreciation for parts of America that that most tourists don't go to. I don't think, Kansas City has somehow like adopted the Algerians. The Algerians and the Kansas City people are very close. So I think that's a nice part of it. And you know what? A lot of the World Cup is around kind of soft power. It's marketing and it's branding, both for the host nation, but also for the nation sending teams, because you kind of judge a country by like whether, their fans bring something to the table. Okay. So we've got the Japanese fans. Japanese fans come and they've got a shtick because everyone needs a shtick. And their shtick is they bring these blue garbage bags and they clean up their section afterwards. And we all marvel about it because no American, or I don't think no non-Japanese person would do that, but maybe. So that's been their shtick. The Congolese showed up with some pretty amazing outfits. They had these leopard ensembles, and they also have a fan who stands as a statue throughout the game, like a human statue fan. He doesn't move the entire game, which is nice. Freddie is doing yeoman's work for Germany. The Koreans and the Mexicans have bonded over a shared love of tequila, turns out. I don't know if you know this, but Koreans are big drinkers. They're known to be drinkers. And then the Brits, the Scots have been dispatched to
true to form
Boston,
on the Scots,
where people love the Scots. They're Timu Irish, so they do well everywhere. And then the English.
What happened in Boston? They drank them out of product.
Supposedly, they drank them out of beer, which. I had a British friend who was on X, like, Americans are terrible drinkers, which is a kind of funny thing to say. And I said that this is definitely one area where the Brits are still at the top of the league tables, which I know they're going to be later. I mean, nice weather in London, people are going to be outside the pubs drinking. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, the English showed up. And they're great fans. They stopped the hooligans. They seem like they got that problem under control. So they've got fun chants. So they were playing Croatia. Did you see their chant for Croatia? Their chant was your team is shit, but your birds are fit. Anyway, great time. It is a great summer. I'm glad that our visitors are getting the true American experience.
So the bridge here is that, America, and all of its problems are broadcast, right? Like it's a country that is the best and the worst of everything. And you see all of that because, we're the makers of culture around the world. So it manifests in music and television and film and the news. And never more than now, actually, because it's also the kind of great source of kind of popular global memes. And so, when you go to a country that's, better behaved and more unified culturally, you just see these kind of gentle, like little theme parks of countries. And then you come back to America and it's this big, messy, conflicted, crazy place. Yeah. And I think it's got to be great to visit. It's got to be
disorienting. It's got to be disorienting.
Speaking of, Brian, was the fight on the White House lawn disorienting for you?
It was very disorienting. Did you see they had a warm-up act of like dirt bike tricks that were going on the White House lawn? Yeah, Trump turned the White House lawn into a UFC arena. They had some goon who was cackling to
Think
Joe
about
Rogan
the intersection that we're
Michelle
living in,
Obama
Brian.
being a man.
disgusting.
that?
But like the intersection of like, I don't know, influencer media, you know, government communications, or like the kind of protocol of the state, combat sports, sponsorship, entertainment. It's just so Trumpian. It's unbelievable.
Look, I don't like maybe,
and it just reeks.
Maybe I'm getting too
taste.
political here, but I feel like, when we talk about Maxxing and all of this, I think the MAGA brand's in a tough spot right here. I think it's kind of worn off a little bit. And, that goon with the Michelle Obama comment, I think it really kind of summed up a lot of it. It's like,
can we just keep the cellist or like an orchestra or an opera or ballet or something in the White House? Do we have to MMA that shit? Why?
I don't know.
Why? Just to like it's just forcing a kind of tribalism that's an in-your-face thing that is so disgusting about the MAGA people. Like, why do we have to do that?
Okay, let's move off that. I'm not going to do American Trillionaire because...
Why? That's a great one.
Actually, okay. So, as part of the Americamaxxing, I think you have to go to Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. Now, here's the case for this being a great American story. He's an immigrant. He dreamed big. He took massive risks. Like, he's got big balls, this guy, okay? He just like goes all out for it. He was able to manage capital. He was able to seduce capital too. He's also an endless hype man. You do not have America without hype, okay? He's also a tremendous financializer. This guy, that's a secret talent that he has. He's also expert at feeding off the government trough, all those government contracts that he was able to get, while at the same time abhorring government waste and overspending. That kind of hypocrisy is also part of the American experience.
Yeah, but isn't it wild, Brian? It's like a one stock bet on the future, right? That's what the bulls will say. Like, if you believe in any kind of, extraterrestrial AI future, this is your public market bet. And it's also wild because it's like the privatization of American ambition. Like, we used to rely on NASA. Now our ambitions are all privatized, whether it's AI or space travel.
And there's a good chance, I don't want to say good chance, there's a chance he's running a giant Ponzi scheme at the end of the day. He's got outre political views, and he's just a profoundly weird dude. And this is a profoundly weird country. So I say, like it or not, Elon Musk, great American.
Boom. Done. Thank you for covering that.
Okay.
Also a great American, Silk White. You want to talk about Silk White.
Oh, Silk White. Yeah. So that is, I've noticed, and I think we're about...
This is a micro version of Elon Musk.
Okay. Give me the case for Silk White. You explain to the people who Silk White is. He's a hustler.
I don't know.
Literally.
He's like a, ex-con drug dealer, hustler who now makes serialized entertainment for Tubi and is buying real estate in Virginia to make sure that his family is taken care of. And he does, great popular shows like Love Don't Pay the Bills and Tears of a Hustler. And I think that's pretty great that we live in a time when you can have a kind of self-made, movie of the week guy.
Yeah. And I think we're on the front edge of seeing a lot more of these stories. We focus a lot on maybe I focus on some of the downsides of all these changes, but there are a lot of upsides. I mean, you can't and again, just to try to shoehorn it into the top, just like America, you cannot separate the grotesque from the inspiring. And same thing with what's going on right now. There's going to be a lot of grotesquerie, and there's going to be a lot of people who are high agency and are very inspiring. And, this guy clearly is. So kudos to you, Silk White. So AB is going to be joining in like a minute to discuss the Fox deal for Roku. But let's kick it off. $22 billion deal. In AB's, his formulation is that they're building the everyman streaming platform with ads. I always thought Roku is an interesting beast. They are, they have the interface layer on TVs, and they used it to basically kind of be Switzerland, but not quite be Switzerland. They had their own channel. They could sell ad tiles and tune in, and it never became like a massive, home run.
Well, it's the post-cable programming guide. That's a valuable thing, right? For real folks, right?
But this is a big deal. This is a big deal for Fox. I mean, this is Lachlan Murdoch making a big bet. They don't have the best track record, that group, when it comes to making big technology bets. Let's not forget MySpace. Okay. I have it. And Gemstar.
All right.
What do you think? What is the logic?
The problem is those distribution bets are always high risk, aren't they? Because you're never going to buy the lock-in. You're going to buy the second-tier player, which is what Roku is. And, how long will it take for their distribution position to erode? I don't know. There's no doubt that free ad-funded streaming is a thing. It's growing, and people like it.
Right. The question is, like, do you try to own the interface and the platform? I mean, the whole like logic behind it was that it was a somewhat like neutral sort of third party, and like whether or not this actually grows the business, right?
You know what? He's making a big bet, and his old man won't be alive to see whether or not it works or not.
That's fair enough. I'll tell you who didn't like it. It's the stock market. That's for sure.
When convenient, you lean on the market. You ever notice that?
23.5%. Well, I like the fact, I mean, like I have the market like recommend, or they represent something, right? So
yeah, well,
these companies are supposed to return shareholder value. That's another thing. Mr. Evan Spiegel, Mr. down 92% from IPO. I mean, what has this guy been doing? Why do these companies have dual class? Why does Snap need dual class of shares? To protect it from what? AB, answer for the finance industry.
Well, and AB is AB going to dig into the numbers of this Roku thing? Are you prepared, AB?
I'm so prepared.
So we just kicked it off with what the strategic rationale is or is not when it comes to Fox buying Roku. Break this deal down for us. Because the stock market, as I said, hates it. Down 23% last 5 days.
Yeah, that's more of just a math problem. But yeah, it's a big deal. It's like $20+ billion on a multiple basis. If you look backwards, it's like 50 to 70 times EBITDA. But I think it's just a reflection of what Fox's strategy is, right? So they sold the entertainment assets to Disney, and now they're most focused on news, local TV, sports. And Roku gives them a place, and I think it has 100 million subscribers globally. Fox touches 100 million subs, and they said, or overlap. So this is more of a way to get everyone has Roku on their TV. This is like the evolution. You're not relying on the local TV guide to find your channels, but it's effectively the software that powers most connected TVs. So YouTube has a slot there, Netflix, and this is just another way for Fox to get connected. And then I think the other valuable thing that Roku has when people sign in is just amazing data on that end user and a really strong ad network. So the way the deal works is Fox has to believe it can pump more advertising into this. Like the growth expected through the combination is pretty significant. And so when I say it's a math problem, the reason why the stock is down is because Fox, as part of the deal, gave up about 23% of the company. So it's both cash and stock. And so it's having a dilutive effect on the share price. So they bought a business that's trading much higher than Fox trades at. Fox probably trades at 10 times EBITDA. And so you basically bought something big, and then it's just diluting the overall business.
This is kind of a little, you think about like the Murdochs, he's kind of doing a rerun here. In 1988, Rupert bought TV Guide. So maybe this is the modern version of this.
You like it, AB?
I like it a lot. Yeah. I mean, I think people forget that not everyone in the US subscribes to Netflix. And this is and Netflix is trying to figure this out with the ad supported model. So this is a way to touch all of America. Fox's ad supported platform that they already have does well. And so this is a way to make sure the biggest hurdle here is if now people perceive Roku as connected direct. Like, yes, it's going to be connected directly to Fox, but basically they lose the engagement because now it's tied to a media company and is not this neutral platform. But it makes a ton of sense because, and that's what's really helped with YouTube scaling, is the fact that it's now installed on TV, and most Americans watch 3 to 4 hours of TV a day.
I've never met
Still?
anyone that has Roku, by the way, but
Yeah.
just saying.
3 to 4 hours still?
It comes automatically installed on TVs.
Have you ever met anyone that uses Roku?
It's just not
I
a
know somebody
consistent
who's-
conversation.
Get it on Roku.
But is it completely, I think it's just, to have a comparison with the Paramount deal, it's a completely different way of looking at it, which is like, we're not going to bet on hits and things like that, but we're going to have a core set of content. We know consumers like sports. They have a lot of great sports IP. They're going to do news. One of the other nuances that's happening right now with local television and the affiliates is that those sales teams don't have the tools to really sell inventory how everyone else is starting to sell it, like with direct consumer targeting. And so this is a way, I think, for Fox affiliates to get more of that ad revenue, is by having like a really solid ad tech platform where they have the users logged in.
That's a good point. So AB, I hate to put you on the spot, but what's next? Where's the next deal?
In what? In video land?
In media, AB. You got your finger on the pulse. What's happening now?
I have a twist on that question, but you can take it first.
Well, Brian, you fancy yourself a bit of a soothsayer. So what's next? You want to help AB out on this?
Well, no, I don't want to help AB out, but I want, because he said something interesting to me at Cafe. Was it Cafe Clooney? Where were we at?
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yep.
We were it was like me, AB, the West Village girlies. It's great. No, but you had said that you're kind of done on the newsletter world. Like you're all about YouTube.
I don't think I'm done. I'm just saying that the value created from these video channels is just so much more significant, because like the weighted advertising they can take is just so much different than a daily or weekly newsletter.
Okay.
The amount of coverage the newsletters get versus like the value being created from an enterprise value perspective and transactable assets is just different. In this new media world, if you had to pick out editorial, like written editorial content versus video content,
Yeah.
there's just this
I got
big
you.
difference. Yeah.
I thought about that when I saw, the Bulwark had like one of those in-depth articles that was written about it in like the New York Times that was like hanging a for sale sign, like on the business. It was like, oh, we've had some inbound interest. We wouldn't want any of that. We wouldn't want say more of it. By the way, we have 1 million subscribers and 14% pay us. But really, when I think about the Bulwark, and when they started, it was right around when the Dispatch started, and it was, and Free Press, but they all had different versions of, okay, the politics are changing and there's different lanes. The Dispatch was going to take the center right lane, the sort of the 40 yard, between the 40 and the middle of the field, but on the right side of the field, not on the left side of the field. And they were like, we're not going to do never Trump stuff. And then Barry did the anti-woke stuff. And then Bulwark was like, we're just anti-Trump. And I was like, that's not going to, that can't last. I mean, Trump won't be around forever. I mean, he seemingly might be actually. But I think that I did a podcast with Sarah Longwell, who runs Bulwark. And, she was like, everything changed when we put when we put the cameras on. When we turned our podcasts into vodcasts, and that's when they really took off.
Yeah, that's good for political stuff. Here's, just because you guys never answered my question, I think the next one to drop is Semafor is going to sell.
Oh, I like that. Who's the buyer for Semafor? Axel Springer?
Washington Post, Axel Springer, maybe one of the cable news guys. What's it called? The spinoff. Someone's going to buy it. Someone's going to want to buy it before, just as these big event franchises are maturing, they're going to like the brand and its convening power. And this time, Ben and Justin are going to be ready and willing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Good call.
What did they raise the last round? Was at like a couple $100 million. So
Yeah, no, it'd be a big buy. I mean, just
Yeah.
because of what their valuation is.
but overall, in terms of
If there's any
deal.
lesson from the last generation,
Well, another fun question, because we have some nice listeners, is, who sells first, Puck or Semafor? I think it's Semafor.
Semafor is easier to buy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Semafor is a better business, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say with authority.
I think for a big media player, it's easier to grow Semafor because of these conferences they're doing and like the amount. Like, again, it goes back to why video is better than why creators doing videos better than newsletters is like the levers to grow Semafor advertising revenue is much easier, right?
Look, I like Puck, but like and I'll get like, John will send me a note or something like this, but like it's too newsletter centric. You can only send so many freaking newsletters. Trust me.
Well, in a weird
twist
of face, the other one that will sell is someone like Fox will buy all in, and the billionaire guys will say, why sell it? And Jason will say, we're selling it. And so he can finally get the bag, and someone will buy that.
Where's the bag?
Well,
I think he's got like 100 million. Just shocking. I can't believe that.
I mean, that's chump change these days, but who doesn't have 100 million, Brian?
I don't. Honestly, I don't. Good for
Jason. The big takeaway from AB and I heard it from another prolific newsletter publisher the other day. I think this is interesting, is that clutter has come for to strangle your email box. We're living in a kind of post-text world. Substack is scrambling to take positions in video and audio. I think they're making some progress. I see more and more video in the Substack feed, and that, if your fortunes are pegged to newsletters, Brian, you better do some more, seminars or whatever you call them, seminars, mixers, because newsletters are text. We're living in a post-text world. Doesn't matter anymore.
I've got a round table coming up. I do, actually, in 45 minutes. I think that is completely true. I mean, you have to be multimodal. I think that's like, the obvious.
Is that the same as omnichannel?
I guess so. It sounds more modern. The other thing I would say on newsletters, and something I've been trying a little bit with Field Notes to try to promote it. I think bullet points remain the best format for newsletters. Like Jim won.
Axios won.
I think Axios did win. I used to joke about their innovation being bullet points, but it really is the best way to have newsletters. Like I love writing full paragraphs and all of and honestly, like I feel like it should just be bullet points. Like it has to be scannable, and no matter what, it doesn't matter. It's not just kids. Like people's attention spans and ability to stick with a piece of content for a long period of time is just not there in a lot of cases. And I know people will say, well, it depends on what you write. Yeah, I guess so. I'm just saying that the newsletter formats that I see that are most vibrant tend to be bullet point heavy. I don't like it, but that's just my observation.
Yeah.
Bring back paragraphs. Should we do good product?
All right. Well, I'm going to hand over a good product to you while you're in London. Meat pies or, a nice Guinness at a pub, Indian food. What do you got, Brian?
I mean, I just got here this morning, so I really don't have any fresh reporting. I went to an Ole and Steen and tried to do a newsletter with all these signs about like watch for pickpockets. If you leave your laptop in London and just go 4 feet away or 4 meters or whatever, like, and pick up your coffee, like you'll get warned by people. It's like, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's sort of a six of one, half, and like you in America, you get shot. In London, you lose your laptop.
Yeah. So luckily, I didn't get anything stolen. I have had my phone stolen here before, which is embarrassing.
Didn't you have like a little parquet as a good product or something like that?
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about, because London does urban micro parks really well, and I don't mean the like big parks. Like when people are like, when I like to ask people like, what is your favorite park in New York City? You can't come back and say like Central Park or Prospect Park or Madison Park. Like you can't do that. There's micro parks, and London has a lot of little urban micro parks, and I find that very sophisticated and civilized and humane. Just a little postage stamp of a park, There's one in Tribeca called Duane Park. You ever been there? I spent some time there. It's a great micro park.
Yeah.
There's one
A lot of people,
near
a lot of dog
Battery
shit in
Park
that
City. No, there's not a lot of dog shit. It is a Tribeca. Come on. There's one near closer to FiDi, more to Battery Park City, called Teardrop Park. Lovely park. There used to be a great
There's
park.
a nice one over by
you.
you in the West Village at AB's world headquarters, right? AB, little parkette.
There's a ton. Yeah.
Don't bring like Washington Square Park. That's not.
No.
There's
There's the small ones. There's the small ones, and you get lucky if there's not a ton of homeless people. So
he doesn't even know the name of them. They're not important to him.
Well, that's the thing, because they're micro. People overlook.
I don't
them.
think they have names, do they? I mean, they're probably
they do
dedicated to somebody, but they're nice to like eat lunch or sit and have a phone call.
Very civilized. More micro parks in urban design. All right, guys, let's leave it there. I have to prepare for my roundtable.
Woo-hoo. Thanks, guys. AB.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.